All right, women, I'm going to welcome you very warmly to this call. This is Shakti speaking, and gosh, what a beautiful day. There's a huge soft rain that's just coming over the land where I am at the moment. It feels like a big blessing on our coming together. So the topic that I'm sharing with you about today is 9 keys to awakening your feminine sexual essence. And my intention with this call really is for all of us gathered here for this hour to drop in our bodies together into a state of deep access and connection with the feminine in all aspects of our being, but particularly also in our sexuality. And I thought I'd start the call by just saying a little bit about how I came to work with this topic of sexual awakening for women, which is the title of my book and the theme of which my work has been focused on for a long time. So growing up in South Africa during apartheid, I had parents who were very aware of the political situation. And so I grew up with a strong sense of really wanting to make a contribution to the rebalancing of the relationship between people in this country. And in my 20s, I got very involved in developmental work, very passionately, very fiercely, and plowed myself into the work, actually in a very masculine, hardcore way. To the extent that when I was in my late 20s, I was running an organization, and I also had finished my PhD. And I had chronic fatigue syndrome. I had just ended a very significant relationship, and my life came abruptly to a halt as I got called really to have a good look at the way I was living my life, which was way too driven in the way that many women in our society that have the capacity to get somewhere post-patriarchy have lived their lives, because our role models were masculine. But my body was telling me that there's a different way. And so at that point, I began to read Clarissa Pintola Estes' book, Women Who Run with the Wolves. And the story of skeleton women really moved me, where in the story, this woman drags up this skeleton out of the deep, and she starts to blow her breath over the skeleton, and she starts to caress and to love the skeleton. And through her love and her tenderness and her care, she brings this apparently dead body back to life. And I realized at that point that I was in such a stage of my life where, in a way, I had become just a skeleton. I was performing all the functions, but my soul was not alive. And so I started to listen and live deeper. And that listening, at some point, took me to a month in which I went to go and live in the wilderness and prayed and fasted and asked for guidance about the real direction or purpose of my life. And during that time that I was living in the wilderness, I had this beautiful vision in which an eagle came and picked me up. And the eagle took me on his shoulders and had me traveling way up into the sky and discovering exquisite dimensions of myself, really, and of this life, so much more than what consensus reality informs us about. But at some point, this eagle then brought me back and dropped me at the edge of a cliff where there was a cave. And this cave had an inhabitant that was an old hag. And at the entrance of the cave, she had a doormat, an old doormat. And so the eagle instructed me that I had to ask the hag how I could fly myself. And so she gave me the doormat. And as I took the doormat, miraculously, it became my wings. And so I was able to go flying with the eagle, with these newly developed wings that I had gotten through turning the doormat into the wings. I'd had another exquisite journey, and eventually we came back, and I came to thank the hag and gave her back the wings that then became the doormat again, and turned to the eagle to ask him how I could thank him for this exquisite journey that was so transformative for me. And he said to me, the way that you will thank me is by teaching other women how to weave their own wings. And he pointed me to the cliffs outside where there were many women sitting, looking quite downcast and waiting for something to happen. And the next moment I found myself sitting with these women, and together we learned how to weave our own wings. And it was an exquisite experience that was, for me, a very clear message about what my life was about. And I also feel that, in a way, that is what each of our lives is about as women. It's a time now at the end of patriarchy where we as women have an opportunity to come together in a way of deep support to rediscover what the feminine really is, because she got buried during the 5,000 years of patriarchy. We forgot the wisdom of the feminine. We learned to live in the way of the masculine, which is very goal-oriented, the outdated model of the masculine, the patriarchal model. Goal-oriented, driven, one-pointed focused, and really not at all inviting of the deep mystery that the feminine wants to invite us into. And so we're at a point where many women feel at a loss as to what it actually means to be a woman. What is the feminine? Where do we find her? Where do we find her in our bodies? We find that in our sexuality. There's a confusion around what it really means to be feminine. We've been taught by the marketplace that being feminine means having a particular kind of appearance, like models and makeup and a certain kind of clothes and a certain shape of body, and performing in bed, having an orgasm, giving an orgasm. And the more we try to attain this model of femininity, the more confused we start to become. But as you can see from looking around, it really is a very magnificent moment in history that we find ourselves in, because we now have the opportunity to step out of the cage that we've been living in and to start to create a new world. This is a time in human history where not only do we need to call back the feminine for our own well-being, but we actually have to bring her back in order for balance to be restored on this planet. And I do believe that it's the wisdom, the deep intuition of the feminine that is going to contribute to showing us the new way. So for each of you women that have taken the time to show up on this call, I believe that really what is calling us to take the time to look at ourselves is a deep knowing that we are the ones who will create a new humanity and a new life on planet Earth. We have that power, we have that capacity. And one key to that capacity that we have is the awakening of our sexual energy, because our sexual energy is so much more than just the genital affair. It's actually the movement of vital life force. It's the movement of energy that animates all of life. And in the Hindu Tantra tradition, they would say that that energy is called Shakti. Shakti is the name of the feminine principle, the collective term for all the feminine goddesses in Hindu Tantra. And it refers to the quality of power that moves through the feminine, because she is the one that creates the world. Of course, she doesn't do this alone. She does that in union with Shiva, the masculine principle that is pure consciousness. And when we really want to come into balance in ourselves as women, in our sexuality and in our living and our being, there is that merging between consciousness and form, between formlessness and form, between stillness and creativity that we're being invited to. So beautiful women, I want to welcome you again to this call, and so many more of you have arrived since I started speaking. What I'm going to be doing for the rest of this time we've got is to introduce you to 9 keys for sexual awakening for women. These keys are key elements of opening up to the essence of the feminine that I've found over the years of working with women across the world. And life has given me the opportunity to really work with women in many, many different cultures and many different situations. And so I'm fortunate to be able to share this with you. I will also, during the sharing at some point, invite you into a body meditation to really just drop into the experience of what I'm talking about. And I'd like to also make you aware that what I'm speaking about here on this call is really an invitation to a larger process, which I'm starting on the 9th of February. That is a 9-month intensive for women to really awaken to our feminine sexual essence. It's called Sexual Awakening for Women. And for those of you who would like to have a look at this page, because some of what I'll be speaking about is actually on the page, you can go and have a look at www.sawintensive.com. So Tiffany's also posted that in your chat box. It's www.sawintensive.com. Go and have a look at the page, and you'll see that what I'm sharing with you here is elaborated on more on that page. And so this hour that we've got together will give you that drop in the ocean that I think gives you, will touch your bodies in a way that will open keys for you to remember what I'm talking about here, because it is a remembering of something that is deeply true inside our beings already. It's not something that I've pulled out of somewhere. It's a remembering that's come to me through grace, really, and through working with women and through deep listening in my own life. And so I'd like to start by introducing you to these 9 keys. And the first one is the key of remembering that the feminine really is wild and free. And, you know, if you look around at women in our world, then it's not so common to see that real quality of authentic wildness in women. We access some, I would say, simulation of that wildness on the dance floor when we've got enough alcohol in our bodies. But I'm sure that you know what I'm talking about here. This is the quality of wildness that happens when we find ourselves being able to sit naked under the stars and be happy with our bodies. The quality of wildness that we find when we can look deeply into somebody's eyes and be fully present in ourselves and at the same time fully present with them. The quality of wildness that happens when we really listen to our hearts and we follow our passion without any holding back. It's the kind of quality that the great artists and the great thinkers of time had. They would not hold back because they knew what they were following was true. And so they didn't let themselves be censored. But the truth of the matter is that most of us don't experience ourselves like that in our womanly bodies. And the reasons for this really have to do with what Jung and Freud before him called the unconscious. And the unconscious refers to that dimension of our psyche which remembers everything which we haven't fully felt and that we haven't fully lived. And so throughout our lives, especially in our childhood, there are many experiences that we have that at that moment in time are just too much for us to deal with. And so we suppress them. And sometimes those experiences are traumatic, but sometimes they're just overwhelming. Like the moment when you're reaching for your mother's breast and she just doesn't want to do it anymore. And that moment can be traumatic for a child, and it can be remembered in the psyche as a sense of abandonment, for instance. So that those experiences that we haven't fully felt will keep coming back in our lives to remind us that they still need to be felt, that they still need to be loved, that they still need to be digested. And they will come back in our sexual lives. That's one area where they will come back. And so it's no wonder that we oftentimes find that our relationship life ends up being the playground where we get to do a lot of our infancy work, our childhood work, where we get to feel the feelings that we didn't fully get to feel when we were too small or too helpless to really deal with those feelings. But we have to learn how to do that work, because if we don't, we will keep on projecting onto our partners. We will keep believing that if we just find the right person, then sex will be great, life will be great, and I will feel like a woman. Of course, the other aspect of the unconscious is the collective unconscious. And in our lives, we're sitting here at the end of a very long period where women's sexuality was not only frowned upon, but was actually demonized. And therefore, the story of Adam and Eve, and Eve being the one who bit the apple. And so great suspiciousness about women's desire. And in general about sexuality. Many of us have grown up in maybe even religious contexts where any celebration of sexuality was frowned upon. And so all of that is sitting there in our psyches and is waiting to be unblocked. And the way that it will be unblocked is by us being willing to feel those places, to meet them with our consciousness, with our awareness, with that Shiva quality of sitting in awareness with what arises. And also with the Shakti quality of the open heart, the open body, willing to feel everything that comes up. And that is how we become wild and free. And as you can hear from what I'm saying, this is not a small task, and it's something in which we need support. We will need guidance in this journey. And we will need each other's support. And that is why I've created this 9-month intensive, because I just, over the years of working with women in one-off workshops, I just started to feel like we need actually to create a community, a worldwide community where women can come together and deeply drop in to do this work together. And I feel like it's my role in a way to be that hag that is gonna support us or facilitate us into turning that aspect of us that has been a doormat. Yes, we have been doormats. We have been doormat in so many ways. We said yes to what hasn't been good for us. We've allowed what we shouldn't have allowed. We haven't had power. We haven't had choice. Until very recently, women's sexuality was owned by men. We had to have a man in our lives in order to survive. I don't know if you know that, but it's not been that many hundreds of years that women haven't even been allowed to walk on their own in the streets at night. And so we're sitting here with a lot of ancestral memory that's even sitting in ourselves that needs to be felt, needs to be worked through. And therefore, the coming together of the sisterhood, creating a forum in which as women we can do this work together. And then moving on to the second key, which is lighting the fire of your sexual essence. So what I find that is for a lot of women, because of this conditioning that we're sitting with, we actually have very little access to our own desire bodies. We don't know what we want. We don't know what feels good. We know what other people want, and we know how to give them that. But how to really feel what feels good in this body, in this being, how to really drop into this body and feel myself from the inside out. For many women, that possibility is not something that we even ever considered, because the only way we've ever encountered our sexuality is through an encounter with a man. But what if our sexuality was meant to be discovered in the first place inside our own bodies, by us closing our eyes and dropping inwards, by us learning to feel ourselves from inside our bodies, discovering the flow of our sexual energy from inside, as opposed to just looking for it in the response or the stimulation that comes from the beloved. And also in our lives, the discovery of what feels good, what makes us feel passionately alive. These are the things that we have to reconnect to as women together, and we can support each other in that journey. And when we start to wake up that fire of our sexual essence, we discover that, when I talk about the fire of our sexual essence, it actually is a fire because it's an energetic spark. So if you think of lightning, that running, rippling of electrical currents, that's the quality of sexual energy. It begins in the genitals, but actually it doesn't just begin in the genitals. It actually comes up through the earth. The earth underneath us is a massive electromagnetic field that our bodies are connected to. So when we open up to this energy flow of sexual energy that comes up through the earth, it lands in our genitals, and there is where it really grows and builds. And of course, especially when there's the arousal attraction to a beloved that's showing up in our lives. But we can also cultivate this sexual energy on our own, which is part of what I'll be really developing with the women over the 9 months. Then, I don't know if you know this, but from the genitals, sexual energy actually wants to run up through your entire body and not just staying here in the genitals, but it follows this very fine current that in Tantra is called the Shushumna, and in English that can be translated to the core light. It's the light at the core of your subtle body, of your energetic being. So we've got this physical body, but beyond the physical body, on finer levels, we are pure energy. And the masters over the ages that have been studying this movement, this fine movement of sexual energy, have come to discover that that energy collects in the central channel that runs from the base of the body between the anus and the genitals, just in front of the spine, all the way to the crown of the head. And along this line, the currents of sexual energy run up and down the body. And that opening of these currents, rippling currents of energy, happens in the first place when we become aware of that possibility, and when we start to relax enough into our womanly bodies, when we stop pushing and trying to make things happen by performing, and then also through the cultivation of this upward flow of sexual energy, which is what I will be exploring with you as well in this 9 months personal intensive. Once this energy is woken up, our sexual energy, then the next invitation is how to ride that tiger. Because our sexual energy is a force to be dealt with. It is a power. And I've had many women say to me over the years that they actually realize that deep down they are afraid of that power. And so they'll do all sorts of things to suppress it, avoid it, push it aside, manipulate it, etc. But if we can come to see as women, if we just squarely can come to face the fact that our sexual energy is a tremendous power, then the next opportunity we have is to learn how to work with that power, how to ride that tiger, how to be the one that actually channels that energy instead of letting our sexual energy run away with us. And I'm sure that many of you have had that experience maybe at a moment where you got so aroused that you found yourself doing something that you later regretted. Or maybe got into a relationship that didn't work well for you. Or found yourself just, maybe as a teenager or in your early 20s becoming hypersexual because of all these hormones that were running through your body, and then later on feeling like actually part of your psyche had been trashed by that experience of having so much sex in such an unconsidered way. Well, the answer to that phenomenon is not to suppress our sexual energy, but to learn how to really open to that energy and how to channel it so that it can run up and through the subtle circuitry of our finer sexual body. So our sexual body is not just our genitals. It's also not just our breast. It's our entire body. And it starts in the central circuitry, which is the Sushumna. And along that circuitry, there are energy points that hold particular forms of consciousness. And those energy points are called chakras. And each one of those chakras will open up or close depending on what is going on in our consciousness. And that movement will in turn determine the degree to which our sexual energy can move up through our entire body. So an example, for instance, is the second chakra, which is around the navel area, is the chakra point where our consciousness around belonging is centered. And so if in our lives we've had traumatic experiences around belonging, it might happen, for instance, we had parents that didn't really love us deeply or couldn't embrace us fully. Then it might happen that in our sexual relationship we find it difficult to bond with somebody. And so we find ourselves just wanting to have sex and not actually wanting to open up to the intimacy of sexual relationship. And the reason for that is going back to our childhood. We may not be aware of it. But what happens in the sexual body as a consequence is we keep pressing the sexual energy down into the genitals, and we don't allow it to rise up into the fullness of the belly, where it wants to remind us that we are the womb, that we belong so deeply, so profoundly in this world, and that we are the first members of our own tribe. In other words, the invitation to develop a sense of deeply belonging to myself in my own life, in a deep sense of self-love, embodied self-love. What I mean by embodied self-love is living in a way that your life expresses your love that you have for yourself, relating to your sexual body and to your body as a whole in a way that's an expression of an ever-deepening love for yourself. And so that's just one example of a chakra. Maybe I'll use another example. The heart chakra. So that's in the center of the chest. If the heart chakra has been hurt or wounded in our lives, say for instance through a very traumatic ending of a relationship and a heartbreak that is not fully digested, we might find ourselves not being able to open in the heart when it comes to sexuality and lovemaking. And so it might be that the sexual energy can flow up even through the diaphragm, which is the center where we can feel our power and our individuality. But when it comes to the heart, something just goes into a contraction and we start to put on the brakes. This is too much. I can't deal with this. Can we just stop here? And the resolution of that is the movement of actually touching that place of pain and trusting the heart's capacity to digest pain, because the heart has been made to do that. And so if we take in the pain rather than resisting it, if we really allow ourselves to feel that heartbreak, to drink it into the center of the heart chakra and to let that pain be physically felt, then the out breath becomes breath that is willing for love that is not conditional, and love that has a yes to life, whether the experience is positive or negative. So a much more integrated state in our being starts to happen. So those two examples point to the ways in which we start to cultivate ways of riding this tiger of our sexual energy, meeting the blockages and opening up to a much more fuller, expanded flow in our sexual energy. And as you can hear, when I'm talking about sexual energy, I'm talking about actually all dimensions of our lives. Because sexual energy is that energy that creates this world, as I said in the beginning. At the end of the day, it's what creates life. It's not just something that we associate with our genitals. Then the fourth key to sexual awakening for women is to learn to work with the power of sexual energy. We have to embrace, as I said before, that actually sexual energy is power. It is Shakti, and Shakti means power. And you block that energy when you don't allow strong feelings like anger to be felt in your body. And how many women, how many of us have done that throughout our lives? How many of us have been trained to not feel strong emotions, particularly emotions like anger? And how many of us have been taught not to embrace the magnificence of who we are, because we were told to be modest, we were told to be humble. Even in modern spiritual traditions, we can so easily misunderstand this. But this sexual power that we're talking about here is not one that belongs to me or to you. It's not the kind of power that patriarchy cultivated, which is a power over and a power under. It's the power of life itself moving through us. It's saying yes to being the conduit for power to move through us, which transforms our lives so that we become priestesses of the Most High, is one way of saying it. And our sexual bodies become the channels for that power to move through. And once we start to become aware of that power, then it becomes important to address the next key, which is transforming the sexual archetypes of the feminine. So the archetypes of the feminine that I'm talking about here are the ones that were created in patriarchy, and particularly we can refer back to that story of Adam and Eve. It's the virgin whore split. It's that place in our psyches as women where for 5,000 years we've been told that either you're going to be a good girl, a good mother to your children, a good wife, pure, connected to God, or you're going to, so in other words, you're going to be a good virgin, or you're going to be a whore. In other words, you're going to just say, forget about all of this. I don't give a damn, and I'm going to celebrate my sexuality, and I'm going to go to the opposite extreme. I'm going to have as much sex as I want. I'm not going to actually care about myself in the process of who I have sex with and in what way. And I'm going to use sex to get what I want, because that's the way patriarchy works. I will manipulate my sexual energy to get what I want, and I know how to do that. And so what happens for most women is that we tend to fluctuate between these two poles. Sometimes we find ourselves manipulating our sexual energy, and one way of doing that, for instance, is if you're in a long-term relationship with a man, or even married to a man, and you want something from him, you can withhold sex. And then if the man will start to understand that if he gives you what you want, the lifestyle you want, for instance, the things you want, then he will get the sex that he wants. Well, that is a form of prostitution, you could say. It's the polarity, the extreme polarity of using and abusing our sexual energy, or then, on the other hand, becoming the virgin, the one who actually just shuts down her sexual energy because she's decided that it's more important for her to have access to her purity. That split between the virgin and the whore that we've become so enculturated in during patriarchy is actually based on the illusion of duality. What happens when we start to face both the virgin and the whore, and we playfully start to explore how they act out in our lives, is that we discover that actually the two of them are meant to come together. Our virginity is our innocence. It's our purity. It's our capacity to be profoundly present in this moment of lovemaking, and this moment of lovemaking, and this moment of lovemaking, as though we're making love for the very first time. It's our capacity for all, and it's a capacity that is a key to our sexual awakening as women. So the virgin meeting and melting with the whore. The whore, when she moves into her fullest expression, is the sexual priestess, is the one who celebrates her sexuality, is the one who opens up to allow her body to be a gateway for the movement of the divine. And the temple within which, in the union of two people coming together in lovemaking, we discover each other's divinity. That is the potential that we are moving towards as women when we get to the place where these two can meet and merge, the virgin and the whore. Then there's a third archetype, which I call the women's union. The women's union refers to that aspect in our psyches as women where we have learned during patriarchy to judge each other to the ground. We will judge each other for our appearance, for being too sexual, for not being sexual enough, for having this boyfriend and not having that boyfriend, and we will compete with each other. And so this is the reason that the existence of the archetype of the women's union in all of us women, because of patriarchy, is the reason why so many women are mistrustful of other women. Now, what I've found in my work is that something profound transforms, in that we come together in a way where we actually learn to support each other, to discover our sexuality, to embrace our bodies, to celebrate what we look like, to open up to our passion, to our power, to our beauty, to our magnificence. And we discover that we are actually a sisterhood with a tremendous power to make an impact on this world. And a bit later on, in a short while, I'll be talking to you more about my vision for how together as women we can make an impact on this world. So moving on with the keys, when we start to integrate these aspects, these archetypal energies of the sexual feminine in our bodies, we get to a place where we can really start to set the world alight with our sexual power. And what I mean by that is that once this energy wakes up inside of you, the sexual energy, it becomes the energy that now drives and motivates and opens up your life. And you can start to ask yourself questions like, what do you want to create with this life of yours? What is the difference you want to make in this world? You can start to think beyond your own personal life and start to think about yourself as somebody who actually has a contribution to make on this planet, to the well-being of humanity, to the well-being of species, to the well-being of planet Earth herself, whatever it is that pulls you and draws you. And of course, in this moment in time, I'm sure many of you are aware, even if you're not in the States, of this beautiful experience we've just had of women coming together, one of the biggest marches in the history of humanity, women coming together to really celebrate the feminine and to say no to any form of suppression of anybody. And what a beautiful expression of the tremendous power that there is in the feminine when we really say yes to being that power and to moving as that power to make a difference in this world. We will also be looking during the 9 months at how do we work with that energy in our relationship lives, so that instead of our lovemaking being a kind of a mutual bonding exercise of personalities, we go beyond that and start to discover each other's divinity, because we keep opening up because we keep surrendering, because we keep letting go more and more and deeper into the qualities of the feminine, which are deep receptivity, a quality of roundness, which is very different from that kind of one-pointed focus of the masculine, that drivenness, where in this roundedness we start to sense and feel life in so much deeper of a way, so that our bodies can start to bring forth the wisdom that they carry. And that wisdom gets communicated to the body of the beloved. And together we start to discover what it means to let go the masks, to let go our story about ourselves, to be unmasked in the experience of lovemaking, and to open up to finer and finer dimensions of our being. We discover each other's divinity, and we discover how to bow down to that in each other. Then the seventh key is how to work with sexual energy as creative energy. So not only is our sexual energy power, but it is also creative life force. We discover that as our sexual energy wakes up, we become artists. Other aspects of our brain start to wake up. We start to be able to move in ways that are lateral and spontaneous, not just repeating old patterns, but actually being able to create new flows, new possibilities, and new structures. Sexual energy is also the energy of abundance and money flow. And so when that opens, our relationship with money is also bound to transform. Then the eighth key is this one, where our sexual energy becomes a fire in the heart. When the heart starts to open up and to flower and to be allowed to feel everything that it feels in a very non-dual way. In other words, both our ecstasy and our agony is felt by the heart and digested through this breathing in and this breathing out, breathing in all that is there to be felt and allowing it to be transformed into pure love, pure connectivity. When that awakening happens, then the heart becomes the engine that actually fires our sexual energy. And the heart center, which is also, of course, where these beautiful breasts of ours are based. Our breasts are the expression of the heart. And so the heart center and the sex center become the positive and negative poles of our sexual circuitry. And as they start to connect with each other, it's almost like a battery connecting its positive and negative charges. And we come alive in an entirely different way because our sexual energy wakes up. And finally, that brings us then to the ninth key, which is that sexual awakening for women is very much about making love to our own divine essence and to the divinity of our partner. Our sexual energy wants to open us up to our divinity, to the essence of who we are. And what I mean by the essence is when we come to the place of the greatest stillness, when we drop out of time and space, and we discover that we still exist beyond this form, beyond this body, then we start to remember and realize that the one that I am ultimately is not just the one that lives in this body, even though this body may drop away and will drop away at some point. The life that animates this body will continue, and I am the one that creates that life from lifetime to lifetime. So the journey continues and our evolution continues. And the journey of lovemaking can be one in which we discover that in ourselves through our own dropping into our own sexual bodies. But we can also discover that in each other. And so, women, what I'd like to do at this point, having shared with you now these 9 keys, is I'd love to invite you to just come with me on a short body meditation in which we will just go inside and listen inwards to the body so we can start to experience some of what I'm speaking about. So just closing your eyes and softening the body. Taking some deep breaths. And letting the breath fall out with a sigh. A big opening of the shoulders, letting them fall backwards, breathing in the silence of this moment. Deep inside you, a smile as your eyes turn inward into the inner landscape of your body. And you discover, beloved, it is me. Hello, beloved. Hello, beloved body. I've come to meet you. I've come to feel you. I've come home. I've come to listen to you. And starting to become aware of the breath as it moves into the space around your heart. Allowing that breath to expand in your chest. And with every in-breath, breathing in the love of the universe. Love flooding in towards you from every place. The air, an expression of love. The temperature in the room. The earth below you. The plants. The song of the birds. The people. The sky. The stars. Everything is singing to you the song of love, and you breathing that into your heart, allowing your heart to be nourished and fed and filled up. And drinking that in deeply, deeply into your heart. And allowing the breath to deepen as you feel that breath also entering into your breast now. Letting the breath fill up with the breath and expanding into the breath. So you can even roll your shoulders back and feel the breath expanding outward. And if that feels good and safe for you, you can gently put your hands underneath your breasts and cupping them, breathing into them. There's a verse in the Vigyambhara of Tantra that says, feel the subtle energies of creativity permeating the breasts and assuming delicate configurations. And I want to invite you to feel those delicate configurations, these beautiful movements, the subtle flow of the finest essence of the feminine as she moves through your breasts. She's an expression, they are an expression of your heart's deepest knowing, your heart's deepest longing. And then gently letting go of your breasts and breathing down as you bring your hands together and tracing your hands down the center of your body to the area of your belly, and then resting your hands on your belly, breathing into the belly and breathing the hands to your hips, breathing into the space between your hips and starting to imagine that between your hips in the pelvic center there is a beautiful huge bowl of liquid fluid essence, golden essence. This is the pool of the feminine, liquid essence of your sexuality that rests here between the bones of your pelvis and between the pubic bone in the front and the sacrum at the back. And you can also put a hand at the back of your spine on the sacrum, which is the set of triangular bones at the base of your spine, and then gently finding movement in your sacrum so that the sacrum is now moving forward and backwards. And you'll notice that as you move in this way, that there's a sensation that starts to wake up in the entire pelvic area. And now start to experiment with moving your pelvis in a round, undulating way. So this is going to feel interesting on your hands because the movement is not going to be predictable like that forward and backwards movement. And you might start to find that as that flow happens in the base of your spine, the rest of your spine also starts to move in these round, flowing, undulating ways. And a deeper breath comes, and we can sigh the breath out. And relaxing, becoming aware, dropping your hands, becoming aware at the base of the pelvis of your vagina, your vulva, the inner and the outer labia. And one way of becoming aware of them is by gently finding the lips of the labia and squeezing and releasing them. You can also squeeze the muscles of the vaginal barrel. You're just finding those muscles and squeezing and releasing them. And notice the sensation that arises in the body as you do this. Enjoy the sensation and start to visualize that your vagina, which in Tantra we call the yoni, is like a beautiful flower. When you contract her muscles and close her, it's like you're closing the petals of a flower when the sun sets at the end of the day. And you can take the nectar of your sexuality, the ambrosia, right into the core of your being. And then when you open up, when you relax that tension, so you relax the squeeze of those muscles, the flower opens the way that a flower would open when the sun rises in the morning, drinking in the light of the day. And there's a sense of receptivity, of awe, of beauty, of magnificence, of radiance that you open to as your petals open. Drinking in, through your yoni, drinking in light, pouring in through the yoni and up through your entire body. And maybe you can even visualize that energy entering in through your yoni and then traveling up as a current of light right in front of your spine, along the core light, through the center of your heart, through the center of your head, and through the center of a crown at the top of your head, and the crown chakra opens, and this energy fountains out at the top of your head and cascades down over your entire body. And taking a moment to just sit in that experience. It's very subtle. We're talking here about the awakening of very hidden and mysterious dimensions of the feminine. And at the same time, they're intimately available to us in this very moment. And then gently, slowly, when you're ready, you can open your eyes. All right, women, so I want to invite you again to go and have a look at the page from which I'm talking, and it's www.sawintensive.com, sawintensive.com. And gosh, I'm just feeling such a beautiful flow of connection and intimacy in this moment, intimacy with myself, and also such a deep communion with the feminine between all of us, and a quality of innocence and exquisite beauty and power and majesty. And so what I want to share with you is that not only in this course, Sexual Awakening for Women, am I intending to take you through a 9-month process of your own incubation and accessing this flow of sexual energy of the feminine in your own body, but it is really my invitation to those of you who are so called to become available to be facilitators of this work, to be the ones that will introduce this work to other women, to become the ones that will teach other women how to weave their own wings. Because I really do believe that this work has to spread on the planet right now. And so many of us know that we actually are called to be supportive to other women. But the thing is that we we just don't know where to start. We don't know how to hold space. We don't know how to bring a group together. We don't know how to work with what may come up in that group, how to work with the challenges, how to work with the dynamics that we've encountered in our own lives. And so through the 12 months facilitators training, which is running parallel to the 9 months Sexual Awakening for Women course, I will be guiding you through a process of really learning how to hold the space for other women to go through their own process of awakening. So I want to just repeat to you, if you have a look in the chat box, which is at the bottom of your screen on Zoom, you'll see that Tiffany has typed in for you the URL to this page. You can just click on that link, but I'll read it to you again. It's www.sawintensive.com. So sawintensive.com. So women, I invite you to go and have a look at that page and see what it is that I'm offering you there. I'm really excited to be running this course again. It'll be the second time that I run it in this format. And I'm offering also a kind of advanced facilitators training for those of you who really want to commit to this work and want to do more intensive work with me. That advanced facilitators training requires of you to also do a 12-day in-person retreat with me. You could also just do the in-person retreat that is going to happen in South Africa from the 7th to the 19th of November, and we will soon be letting you know about that opportunity as well. But for now, I really want to invite you to go and have a look at my Sexual Awakening for Women 9 months personal intensive and 12 months facilitators training. If you have a look at the page, you'll see that the way that we structured the course is that there's going to be 2 live calls with me every month, which is, by the way, the most in-person contact that I have with women in any format of my teaching. So live calls with me, one will be video and one will be an audio in a format where we can also break out into smaller groups so that you women can speak to each other. And for those of you doing the facilitators training with me, there will be an additional call every month in which I will teach you how to facilitate this work. Then there will also be every month a video in which you will be shown by me and other women how to do the practices that I'm going to be introducing you to on this course. There are going to be transcripts of every single one of the calls. There are going to be calls for senior students in which you will be practicing what you've been learning during this month together. It's one additional call a month. There's going to be a private website and a Facebook page on which we will be sharing our discoveries with each other, and you women will be posting to each other what you are discovering in the journey. Let me just have a look. I'm reading this all off by heart, but I can open the page to see what else is involved in what you'll be receiving. Of course, there's also going to be a number of really powerful and beautiful bonuses. I'm very excited that one of my teachers, Judith Blackstone, has done an interview for us, and she's developed a very, very beautiful subtle body practice which is called the realization process, in which she takes people very deeply into the body to sense the body from the inside, and from that place to relate to other people. I use her work quite a lot in mine, so I'm very happy to have that bonus to offer you. And also a couple of interviews with Carissa Buerta, who is a wise woman and an expert in the field of working with both the menstrual cycle and menopause. So those 2 interviews are also included in the offering. There's also a very exciting live fun interview that I'm going to be doing with Anaya Sophia, in which we are going to be doing an enactment exploration of the Virgin Hall archetype, and we will be inviting you to participate on that video call live with us. We're all going to dress up and play together. Then I'm also going to be offering 2 bonus calls with couples, because I've found in doing this course in the past that the partners of the women who are doing the course also want to become involved, and it's good to give them a space to also share. You will also be receiving an ebook version of my book, Sexual Awakening for Women. So that will be part of what you'll be receiving. If you scroll down from there, you'll get a full write-up on what the facilitators training is about. I want to just mention to you at this point, women, that we've decided to only have 28 spaces for facilitators training because of the very intensive and personal nature of this facilitators training. During the facilitators training, you will not only be receiving these monthly meetings with me, during which you will be taught how to teach this work, but there will also be, after the 9 months, an additional 6 facilitation training sessions, so that's 2 a month. You'll be receiving a personal one-on-one coaching call with me, which is a very unique offering. I don't make myself available for personal calls that often because of my focus on group work. And you'll also, of course, have much more intimate and direct access with me. There'll also be 2 post-program follow-up calls with me after the course is finished, which will give you an opportunity to share with me and with each other how this work has unfolded for you in your work with other women and with other people. So, women, I invite you to go and have a good read through this entire offering. And a deep thank you to Tiffany for the beautiful work that she's done in helping me put it together. If you get to the bottom of the page there, you'll see that we're offering this course both as a once-off payment and also as a monthly payment option, which makes it much more accessible for women. So at this point, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift over to some time for us to share with each other. So I'd love to invite you to post any questions that you may have in the chat box. I found that that's the easiest way to respond to questions, is to simply invite you to post them in the chat box, which you'll find at the bottom of the screen, and you can simply type in there. And then you can also indicate if you'd like to come live on your video. Right, so I'm going to start answering the questions that are coming up. So first, there's a comment from Mani where she's saying, "Thank you so much for all of this. I need it so deeply. Please speak to how I can feel this energy more viscerally in my body beyond imagining it with my mind." Thanks, Mani. So, Mani, I hope that this meditation that I did with you on the call has given you a sense of it. Basically, the invitation is for us to start to feel ourselves from the inside out. So that's developing a kinesthetic capacity. And for those of you who don't feel ready to join this 9-month course, which is, of course, going to be an ongoing opportunity to develop that capacity through the practices and the guided meditations I'm going to be giving you. I will also be in the next month be offering a number of free webinars like this, in which I'm going to be guiding people through body meditations that will also give you an opportunity to explore this way of relating to your body from the inside out more fully. But really, the invitation is to turn your attention inwards. So it's developing a quality of stillness, a relationship with your breath, and the capacity to start to feel sensations from inside your body. And all the practices that I do in some or other way are meant to facilitate the building of that capacity in your body. At the same time, also, we are working on undoing the blockages that keep you from being able to feel. Oftentimes, those blockages are referred to body armoring. In other words, so body armoring is our emotional defense against feeling. It's the mechanisms that we've unconsciously developed in our lives to protect ourselves from feeling what has been too difficult to feel. And sometimes we need the support and the holding in order to go to those places, which is exactly what I'm hoping to create through this course. Then there's another question from Michaela in which she's asking if it's relevant, would you share the unique differences between this course and the longer totality therapy training? Yes, so for those of you who have heard about this, I will also this year, a bit later on, starting in May, be offering another facilitators training that I'm calling the totality therapy training. That's a 21-month program. And that program is not uniquely for women only. So first of all, that's the first difference, is that, of course, the Sexual Awakening for Women program is very much about the feminine and about contributing to the awakening of the feminine in this world, not only in your own body, but also in this world. The Sexual Awakening for Women training is, in the first place, going to be equipping you to do group work with women if you do the facilitators training. Whereas the totality therapy training is a very deep, intensive exploration of the different dimensions of your own psyche, with the intention of preparing you to be able to do one-on-one work with individuals on that theme, on the theme of sexuality. You can also work with the totality therapy work in group work, but because of the complexity of the work that we're going to be, the psycho-spiritual complexity of the work we're going to be engaging with, it's more likely that you're going to find yourself working with people in a one-on-one way in the totality therapy work. So I'm going to just pause there at this point. I can say a lot more, but I want to just make you aware of the fact that I will be very shortly, within the next week or two, also be sending out on my mailing list quite a detailed comparison that I've created between the Sexual Awakening for Women course and the totality therapy course. Tiffany, I don't know if it's even possible to maybe post that in the chat box in some kind of document form in this moment, but I'd like to move on and answer some more questions. There's a question from Rachel. She's asking how to be with a partner who is not interested in sexual awakening. So this is an interesting question, and in the first place, of course, the question that one has to sit with for yourself is to make sure and to be really ruthlessly honest with yourself that you are still with the right person, so that your sexual partner is still the person that with whom you find yourself evolving and waking up to more of who you are in the deepest essence of who you are. And if that is the case and your partner is not open to this process of sexual awakening, it's not a problem, because you can still open to that journey in yourself. And that's one of the beauties of the way that I have developed this work, is that because we're working here with solo practice, everything that we're learning here, you can practice on your own. And it doesn't look overtly sexual. Mostly it looks a bit more like a meditation practice, which involves movement and breath and possibly even sound in your body. So a gentle unwinding from the inside out of your womanly body. So the practices are, in that sense, quite contained. It's not like if you do them, it's going to intimidate your partner. And they are meant for you to discover your own sexual flow. You can also do them without a partner. So the next question is, I'm aware that I have some unconscious trauma. Is this course going to help get through this, or is that something I should deal with before I'm ready for this course? Definitely, this course is also created in such a way that it creates a safe container for us to work through all the different threads of trauma that are there in our body. So most women on some or other level are sitting with some kind of trauma. For some women that is more severe, and for other it is more subtle. But it's a very key component of the course that we will sit with whatever the blockages that have developed in our systems in those moments where we're frozen because of something happening maybe in our emotional lives, in our sexual lives, even in a belief system. And we will gradually and tenderly start to touch those places and learn how we can unravel them, unravel these tight places in us in a way that is both safe and respectful and gentle and tender, but while being held in a safe container. So I would say, no, you don't have to first resolve your trauma. The whole intention of having such a long period to work through this material is so that we have the time and the space for all of this to be felt and to be held and to be worked through with care and with tenderness. The next question. Thank you so much. What is the first step if the sexual energy seems blocked? So Pernilla, for me, what the first step is going to be unique for every woman. But what the best that I can do in this moment is to just drop into my body and to feel what might be the first step for you if this energy seems blocked. And so what's coming up for me is an invitation to meet the one whose sexual energy is blocked with a lot of tenderness and a lot of care, and to enter into a conversation with her and to ask her, beloved one, what is it that you need? How can I love you more? How can I embrace you more? What are you inviting me to? And then to meet the places in you that judge that one that is blocked, and to let your heart soften so that you can listen to her more fully. Listen to what she's got to say to you, and that would be a very beautiful first step. But once she's told you what she wants, it's then important for you to follow her guidance and to actually take action so that you can start to change these patterns that have developed over a lifetime. So Tiffany's just saying she's not able to post that comparison between the totality therapy work and the sexual awakening for women work here, but any woman who'd like to receive that straight away is welcome to email her, and there's her email address in the chat box. So there is another question, and it's an interesting question that not everybody will understand, so I'll explain the question. She's asking, is this work compatible with healthy BDSM work? And BDSM stands for a way of exploring sexuality where we are very consciously and deliberately working with power. So for many people, there's an eroticism to being either dominated sexually or to be the one that is dominant. Oftentimes, more likely, it's to be dominated. And so, yes, of course, that is a way in which our sexual eros is calling us to fully embrace our power. And yes, I would say that this work is definitely compatible with that way of exploring sexual energy, because we really want to meet our sexual energy. We're wanting to enter into the way that it expresses in our eroticism, and both in the shadow and in the light, both in the fantasies that come up, as well as in the movement of energy in our bodies. And so exploring both what is happening in our minds as well as what is happening in our bodies. There's another question. What kind of time commitment does this course require? Is it a daily practice or? All right, another beautiful question. And I would say it's one of the comparisons between the Sexual Awakening for Women work and the Totality Therapy course is that this course is more paced in its demands on you. As you can hear, there's the calls are, yes, are fairly frequent calls, depending on whether you're going to do the facilitator's training or not. You're going to have between 2 and 4 calls in a month. And then the practices themselves, I would suggest that you do the practices at least once a week. And so practice time would be, depending on how enthusiastic you are and how much you want to make time for it, it could be anything between, say, 1 and 4 hours during the week. I do know women that have put an hour every day aside to do the work, but it certainly isn't necessary. What is also beautiful about this work is that instead of you being given homework practices that now you have to go and sit and do, it's really an invitation for you to explore different ways to discover pleasure in your body. And so the practices are of the kind that you can do in bed when you're waking up in the morning or falling asleep at night. They can be integrated in your lifestyle in a way that opens you more to the enjoyment of being in a body, of being a woman, instead of being kind of separate exercises that you have to force yourself to get to, as I said. There's also going to be many practices that we will do that are specifically meant to open up the blockages and to access the shadow places, the unconscious places in our psyches. And an example of that is working with our ancestry and the material that is there sitting in our ancestral belief systems. And we're going to be, one of the ways we work with that is through a beautiful creative mapping exercise. And when we do that mapping exercise, where you're going to use different objects to represent different people and groups that have influenced the development of your sexuality over your life, you might find that you want to do this exercise more than once. And you might find that it ends up taking quite a bit of your time because you get so involved and interested that you want to start to unpack it more and more. And so ultimately, I would say that it's the kind of course which is, yes, will definitely require a commitment of you, but the amount of time that you're going to be spending on it is not going to be, certainly not taking you away from what your life is requiring of you. You can do this course while you've got a full-time job. You will need to make the commitment to attend the sessions and do the practices at least once a week. And ideally also to attend the practice calls with the other women and to share on the forum. But ultimately, it depends on you, the degree to which you apply yourself, and you will be following your passion, is what I'm saying. All right. Beautiful. And there's just some thank yous coming through. Question from Panella. I feel like my heart chakra is awakened when I can feel like a heart orgasm, but not the base chakra. Is this possible? Yes, it is possible to experience the sense of actually having an orgasmic experience in your heart, and not having the same sense of a real intense orgasmic experience in your base. So in other words, in your genitals. And so Pernilla, in that case, what that's pointing to is an invitation for you to drop deeper into the base and the more base qualities of our sexuality that have to do with, for instance, accessing desire and really saying yes to that. Saying yes to the animal body, saying yes to allowing sounds through your body, allowing your body to move in ways that are not so refined, exploring the whole aspect of your being through playful exercises, the kind of exercises we will be exploring on the course. And so going beyond the places in you that may be too focused in the heart area and that actually really need to embrace your passion, your desire, your raw sexual energy in a stronger, more potent way. All right, beautiful women. I think this is bringing us closer to the end of the call. What I'd like to do at this point is to just take a few minutes for us to drop into the body together again, together. And so let's close our eyes and just taking a deep breath. Noticing as you close your eyes that your attention can drop inwards into your body. Feeling the base of your body sitting on the chair. Enjoying the sensation of being able to really let go into the force of gravity. Your body is connected to the earth below you. See if you can feel the energy of the earth coming up into your body. And as you take some deep breaths through your body, sighing out the breath, notice what is alive inside your body right now. Notice what's happening in your heart. And listening to the questions, the inquiries, the discoveries. Listening into your yoni, your vagina. What is she saying to you right now? How does she respond to you listening to her? Has she ever had this opportunity before to be listened to? What is she asking of you in this moment? What is she inviting you to? And then dropping your attention into the center of your head, resting back deeply into a pinprick of light, resting into silence and spaciousness. Disappearing into emptiness. And through that point, dropping back and expanding into vast space. Allowing your consciousness to expand. Discovering universes upon universes as your body. Discovering the night sky inside your body. Discovering yourself as the one through whom life moves as pure power, pure creativity. Ecstatic, juicy, soft, sensual, playful, relaxed, unwinding, open, tender, vulnerable, available, passionate, yes. Clear about a yes, clear about a no. And a deep breath as we just drop back into the body, relaxing back into our seats, feeling each other, imagining each other from right across the world, gathering the sisterhood of women, with this deep longing to say yes to the feminine as she's awakening in us and in our sexuality, holding hands, ready to support each other and ready to support women across the world who otherwise may not have the opportunity. listening to the longing of your heart. And let that longing drop into the ocean of existence like a drop rippling out. And as you watch the ripples, know that whatever it is that you long for most deeply will come to you. And gently getting ready to open your eyes again. Right, beautiful woman. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been such a pleasure and such a delight for me to share with you in this way. And I'm looking forward to continuing to deepen in the journey with you during this year. Lots of love and many, many blessings. Goodbye for now.